Tonight's topic is History Repeats, but Nobody Listens. This is from Volume 6 of The Survivor. Before the crash of 1987, the Dow Jones was going up, 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 as before the 29 crash. Economists and stockbrokers alike were saying there was no similarity, since today's market had so many of the checks and balances lacked by the 1929 market. There might be a little correcting, but no crash. The crash of '87 was much worse. Hoover and Reagan, after their respective crashes, both said the economy is sound. So many people writing the 29 crash said the economy was actually sound that I will lay that myth to rest right now. The economy of 29 was in shreds long before the crash. Its weakness was built in even before World War I. When the First Great War began, the call went out for all the food America's farms could produce. Farmers went to the bank to finance all the acreage they could manage, plus all the big farm machinery produced back then. Crop after crop was literally mined, destroying millions of acres of topsoil. So rapacious were the farmers that they created the Dust Bowl. Even as the 29 stock market shot upward, dust from Illinois and Oklahoma farms darkened the sun over Wall Street, as well as Chicago and Detroit. The land gave out apace with the market for the surplus crops. Bankrupt farmers no longer supported industry. Industry then had more cars, washing machines, and electric ice boxes than were wanted. About this time, soldiers returned from the late war had finally saved up and bought that little house with the white picket fence. Foreseeing a coming slump, stockbrokers began to sell on margin, hoping to get more people into the market. The idea was that they could then support the flagging industries with unbacked promissory notes. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Margin worked like this. A person of modest means, like that ex-soldier who finally got his house, mortgaged it to the bank for, say, a $500 loan. With that $500, he bought Northwestern Widget stock at 5 cents on the dollar. He now had $10,000 worth of stock on paper. With that $10,000 stock certificate, he could get an additional loan to buy a Model A Ford. If Widgets did well, the stock went up and his margin could be pared down to where his stock was actually worth $10,000 or more. The smart speculator would sell about now. But if Widgets went begging, he would have to borrow more to keep that $500 margin securing his stock. Today's stockholders buying on margin have to put up 50% instead of 5%. This is to make their speculation somehow less risky. So today's investors might pay $10,000 for $20,000 worth of stock. If the stock goes down, they have to raise more to cover the margin. Otherwise, it works on the same principle. The 1987 crash wiped out our modern 50% margin stockholders to the tune of well over $1 trillion. Millions of other small stockholders bought Model A's and other items produced with financing by unsecured stock. It was just a matter of time before these artificially affluent good-time Charlies had bought all they needed and the product stopped selling and the stocks went down. So our ex-doughboy lost his stock. He also lost his Model A. The electric icebox company he worked for had a surplus as people stopped buying again, and he was laid off. Then he couldn't pay on the mortgage, so he lost his home. Brother, can you spare a dime? Banks were hit hard in their turn. Foreclosures on homes, farms, and businesses seemed like fun. But if the banker couldn't unload these properties, he could not make up his own losses in unpaid loans. Maybe he also used his customers' deposits to buy stocks on margin. At any rate, he now had to pay taxes and other fees on all the properties he had foreclosed on but couldn't resell. Also, since fewer people had money to save in his bank, he ran out of working capital and closed his doors. What all these factors invariably lead to is an economic depression. The following news article puts the whole thing down to 50-year cycles. Some good points are made, but I don't think such cycles are any sort of law. It just seems that it takes the factors that long to fall into place and then run their course. Here's the article. Prophets Talk Depression, midweek, Wednesday, November 11, 1987, by Danilo Meadows. Back in the booming 1920s, when Wall Street was the glamour capital of the world, when the rich were getting much richer and the poor were invisible, when a conservative government was cutting taxes, when people were inventing ingenious ways to spend money they didn't have, and when the only conceivable direction was up, one person was predicting a long, painful economic downturn. He was a Russian named Nikolai Kondratiev. He had been studying the 100-year pattern of industrial production in the United States, France, Germany, and England. He found a strong cycle of growth and depression in industrial production. The depressions were spaced roughly 50 years apart. The last one had been in the 1880s, and the next, he said, was due sometime around 1930. Hardly anyone was listening. Kondratiev saw only part of the Great Depression he had correctly predicted. In 1930, he made the mistake of protesting the collectivization of Soviet agriculture and was jailed by Stalin. He died in prison in 1938. Just this past summer, the Soviet Supreme Court cleared Kondratiev's name and declared he had been not a criminal against the Soviet state, but rather a notable and prescient economist. Western economists who have been ridiculing the idea of 50-year economic cycles for the past 5 decades have not yet cleared Kondratiev's name, but maybe they're about to. During the booming 1980s, when much of the go-go frenzy of the 1920s was being repeated, another believer in 50-year economic waves has been predicting a depression. He is not an economist, and when he first discovered what he calls the long wave, he had never heard of Kondratiev. He is Jay Forrester, a distinguished professor at MIT, a world-famous engineer, one of the inventors of the computer and of systems analysis. Forrester wanted to understand why the economy has periodic persistent ills like inflation and unemployment. He started by simulating with a computer the everyday decisions made by firms and consumers: what to buy, where to work, what to produce, what raw materials to order, how big an inventory to stock. As he linked economic sectors together, his simulated economy began to exhibit inflation, unemployment, and business cycles. It also produced a pesky, unexpected cycle with a period of roughly 50 years. Kondratiev discovered his cycle in the historical performance of real economics. He never explained the reasons for it. He just noticed its existence. Forrester, unaware of the historical data, generated the cycle inadvertently in his model system and then figured out why it happens. In a market economy, there is no signal to tell the steel industry, for instance, how much steel the world really demands on a long-term basis. There is only one way to find out: produce more steel and see if it sells. But that takes a long time. Each company has to make a decision to expand, get financing, build a plant, start producing, implement a marketing strategy, and sort out the confusing short-term signals from strikes, trade breakdowns, business cycles, and all the other noise of the economy. All companies are expanding together, and they are fighting for market share, so each has an incentive to out-expand the others. The result is significant overbuilding industry-wide, economy-wide, worldwide. It takes decades for the economy to overbuild itself, then to get the message that it has done so, then to believe that message. It takes another decade or two to cut back factories and workforces to the level of production the economy really needs. And since no one knows what that level is, the cutback, like the building phase, goes too far. When that finally becomes obvious, the next upturn of the cycle begins. The Kondratiev cycle is caused by a great lumbering economy, which takes decades to change course, seeking by trial and error for an ever-changing equilibrium point. The government doesn't cause the cycle's downturn, though it usually gets the blame. It also doesn't create the upturn for which it likes to take credit. Even if the economy consisted of nothing but well-run companies making impeccably rational decisions, the cycle would exist. The presence of greedy companies making foolish decisions makes it worse, as does a government trying to spur investment at a time when investment has already gone too far. Speculative booms at the beginning of the downturn seems to be inherent. There is no real expansion to put money into, no need for more oil wells or electric plants or steel mills when existing ones are standing idle. So excess money stops going into building the economy and starts going into conspicuous consumption and wild speculation. The stock market loosens its tethers to the real economy and starts soaring, blown up by money with nowhere else to go. For the past 10 years, Forrester has expounded his theory in greater and greater detail, forecasting with astounding accuracy the rise in real interest rates, the drop in inflation, the bank and business failures, the burgeoning debts, the increasingly competitive world trade situation, and the long fall of the stock market. Hardly anyone has been listening. End of the article. The 1929 crash was followed by a mild recovery and then a gradual decline into economic depression. In making comparisons, economists and stockbrokers alike said there would be no depression since 87 conditions are much different from those of 29. Some of those differences are, in the depression-ravaged 30s, the U.S. population stood at about 135 million. Today's population is over 250 million. The 30s population was relatively intelligent and stable, able to work if work was available. Today's labor pool is largely moronic, semi-literate, mentally unbalanced, and generally incompetent. Unemployment figures of the 30s were from 13 to 15%. Today's stated figures are around 7%. However, once an unemployed worker has used up his unemployment compensation, he is taken off the list of the unemployed, sort of swept under the statistical rug. Moreover, military personnel, formerly unlisted in the employment figures since they are by no means a part of the labor pool, are now counted as employed. Also, when you consider that people laid off from $15 per hour jobs, then working at part-time jobs or fast food places for under $5 an hour are considered just as employed, you can see how real unemployment figures approach or surpass those of the 30s. Another difference between now and then is that until 1933 there was no Social Security or other federally funded aid system such as Medicare or cradle-to-grave welfare. Federally funded social programs amount to around $500 billion for 1987 alone. There are over 90 million social dependents, but you never hear a politician, economist, or news commentator addressing himself to our economies drained by such a horde of non-producers. And like fleas on a crippled dog, they are too firmly entrenched to be shaken off before their host dies. Other differences are, during the Great Depression, America was rich in oil and other natural resources and relatively unpolluted. Now much of our resources must be imported, adding to the huge trade deficit. Our forests and our once fish-filled lakes are dying from acid rain. Thousands of bridges and hundreds of thousands of miles of our streets and highways go unprepared for lack of funding. Whole towns are unsafe to live in due to industrial pollution caused by the criminal dumping of poisons. Most urban water supplies are reaching the danger point in toxicity. So there are differences between the economies of 29 and 87, but none of the differences are in our favor. They are all economic negatives. So to put yourself into the final picture, read You Can Survive a Nuclear Winter, Volume 1 of The Survivor. Okay, here I am again. The phone number is 501-437-2963. And the address for the $10 information packet is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And of course, with your $10, you get the volume, you get a sample copy of U.S. Militia, and a sample copy of Shoestring Entrepreneur, and a copy of either Root Rot or the Fuel Book. Now, Root Rot tells you how that all of the slaves brought over here were very fortunate indeed, and gives all the background to it, and there's a lot of great stories in there. I intend to read the front part of Root Rot tomorrow. And then your next choice is the Fuel Book, How Anyone Can Make All the Booze He Wants. And, oops, here's a call. Hello, Kurt here.
Hello, I'm Sharon.
Yes, Sharon.
I have a question. I'm interested in designing my own brain.
Yes.
But I don't know how to store. How would I store
Well, as I've advised on the program here, the best way to store your grain is to put it in smaller packets. Like, for instance, you know these, the large Ziploc bags?
Yeah.
And you can store it in those, or you can store it in gallon plastic bottles, like bleach bottles and all.
Then where would you keep it? Does it have to be any place in particular, in a freezer? Or?
Oh, no. You wouldn't put it in the freezer. You put it in any back room where it'll be undisturbed.
Okay, so you're saying these gallon milk jugs would be good for...
Yes. It'd be get yourself a funnel, and if you got kids, make them do it.
Okay. What about the weevils? Do they hatch out and cause much of a problem?
Well, you see, the idea of putting it in gallon jugs or whatever is that although the grain you get is supposed to be free of them, weevils are all over the place. I don't even know where they come from. But, boy, we have been attacked by weevils ever since I moved to Arkansas, and they're just weevils all over the place. But if you put them in gallon things, maybe weevil is going to get in 1 gallon, but not the rest. So we've got plenty of containers of grain that the weevils haven't gotten to, and we've stored it for years.
You said years?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if it would sprout over the years, but if you want to grind it up to make bread, it's perfectly okay.
Okay, I didn't know how long it would keep either.
Well, about 3 to 5 years you can sprout it. Of course, every year, less of it will sprout.
Okay, well, you've been a great help. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, the phone number is 501-437-2963. The mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And for your $10, you get a $5 refund on either subscription to U.S. Militia or Shoestring Entrepreneur. And again, you have your choice of Root Rot or the Fuel Book as your free premium. And just in case you wandered onto the program, it's 5.810 megahertz. Hello, Kurt Saxon here.
Yes, Kurt, I'm calling from southeast Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I'm right near the big urban city of Philadelphia, and if it gets bad, as I think you're going to say it might be getting bad, and all the welfare stuff will erupt, what's a good place to relocate, generally speaking?
Well, northern Arkansas is the place I chose. Of course, it's my ancestral home.
Yeah, I'm a northerner. Is there much in the way of clannishness down there?
Well, no. Arkansas is not a political state. It's true that Tom Robb, whom I know and actually like, don't agree with him everything, but who needs to? He is the head of, I forget what kind of, maybe the Sleepless Nights of the Ku Klux Klan, but whatever. He does most of his work out of state. I haven't seen a hooded Klansman in Arkansas since I've been here, and the people in Harrison do not like the idea at all. And it's a very conservative state. And they don't go in for much for public issues outside the state. And you get your businessmen and your regular workers and farmers and all like that, and they're not going to be bothered by that sort of thing.
Yeah, what we have here is a very, very dependent economy.
Yes.
They have a very, very heavy welfare system. A lot of people of all races dependent on government doles.
Yes.
And if, the government should collapse or if there should be any unrest, it's really going to hit the proverbial fan.
Oh, yes. Yes.
In the urban centers where I am.
Yes. Well, you'd better leave. What do you do?
I'm a nurse.
You're a nurse. Well, we've got a big hospital here in Harrison. That's just the next town over. And then there's big hospitals in Little Rock and places like that. Of course, now that's that's central Arkansas.
How's Tennessee generally, up around Nashville or out by...
I don't know the area. I might have passed through there or over there in a plane, but I wouldn't know the economic situation. But if you're a nurse, I don't think that you would have any problem getting on.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty discouraging as it is.
Well, why don't you just call the Boone County Hospital in Harrison and ask them if they have any openings, or if you would, ask them if you can send an application.
How about, is Harrison a town that they require handgun ownership?
No, they don't require it. They don't care one way or the other. It's Hollister, Missouri, just a few miles from here, that it's a law. Of course, I think they made that law just for spite. They didn't need to make it because everybody there has a gun anyway.
Yeah, incidentally, for the listeners, the Pennsylvania Governor Casey is trying to push the so-called anti-assault bill through the state. The city of Philadelphia was trying to push it as well, but they'll never really they'll never get all the weapons that are out there. And
no, they're silly.
Yeah, my question is, what's an assault weapon? Could be a .38 revolver, you know. I mean, depends.
Well, an assault weapon can be a brick.
Sure, you could hit somebody with a crowbar, or Clarence could hit a Martian with a lug nut.
There you go.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome. Bye for now.
Okay.
Okay, again, the phone number is 501-437-2963. And if you'd like a set of these tapes, write to Jeffries Audio, P.O. Box 326, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. They're $6 each, or $25 for a week's shows post-paid. Hello, Kurt here.
Hey, Kurt, how you doing this evening?
Doing fine.
Listen, two things, Kurt. One, if you keep an eye on your grain and you do get weevils, put it in your oven on a tray about 150, 200 degrees for about 20 minutes. Then you take it outside or in front of a fan and just winnow it.
Yeah.
Blow the weevils off, and you put it right back in the bag and put it back in storage.
Yes, yes. Well, that's very good.
Well, just throw it out. It's a shame.
Well, yeah. Well,
no need for it.
The thing is, the weevils always start at the top.
Right.
So if you inspect your grain periodically and you see a weevil or two in there, give it that treatment. And don't worry about getting a weevil because they're protein, see.
Right, there's a little meat in the diet,
yeah,
sure.
you can't, I've ground up many a weevil, but it's because, like you, I don't want to throw it away just because there's a few weevils in it. But the thing is, you can see them right on top, and once you see any weevils on top, you put it in your oven, and you can save it that way. But but if you do store it in gallon containers, it's very likely that you'll see very few weevils. And if you do see 1 gallon that's tainted, put it in the oven, and got no problem. Weevils are no problem if you're alert and if you put it in, if you separate it.
Certainly, even with the weevils, you have cleaner food than you buy from the manufacturers.
Of course, because they kick it around. Well,
off the floor.
Regardless, who knows where your grain comes from, whether you buy it in the seed and feed store or the health food store. Everybody's going to naturally say that it's absolutely pure, but it isn't.
Right.
Look at the Department of Agriculture, where their specifications are, where peanut butter can't have more than
fly wings and
It can't have more than such an amount, but they can't say, well, it can't have any at all, because it's impossible.
Exactly.
We live with these insects. There's more of them than there is of us. So who knows how many insects and stuff you've eaten over your life. I once found a full-grown grasshopper in a can of spinach.
Right.
I didn't throw the spinach away. I threw the grasshopper away.
Oh, well, that's wasteful.
Yeah. But I didn't throw the spinach away. We live with that.
Certainly. I had a second comment. This isn't for you John Wayne guys now.
Yeah.
This is for us Rambo types.
Okay.
A lot of folks feel that with the semi-autos such as the Mac 90s and such, you can't control them firing full automatic. Now, I'm not suggesting or advocating you buy parts and go full automatic, but there's a method of firing a semi-automatic with the same result. And this is done for a right-handed shooter. Now, I've done this with the Mac 90, AR-15, SKS, H&K 91. Don't try it with an M1 Garand. Don't try it with a commercial hunting rifle. You'll get a mouthful of barrel. Do is you grab it by the pistol grip or small of the stock. Clamp the buttstock between your arm and rib cage. Reach across with your left forefinger inside the trigger group and tap away. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it works very effectively. It also works effectively with any .22 long rifle or a semi-auto pistol.
Yeah, but it's not nearly as good as aiming.
Oh, no, of course not. This isn't a case where you're repelling an assault or you're taking cover and you're just giving enough firepower to cover yourself while you're taking cover and concealment. And or in the case you're defending a position, we have.
Well, have you ever heard of the Hellfire?
Yeah, that's I don't care for that.
Well, the guy that sells them, well, one guy that sells them, he came to visit me, and he showed the tape on my TV, and it looked pretty good to me. All it does actually is just flick the trigger for you.
Right, that's all it does. The recoil does the work.
Yeah.
Because it's spring loaded. But I have a buddy at his gun shop, and he says that again, it's not something you can aim. You have to hold it forward.
Yeah.
And with this here, you have a lot more control because in a prone position, if you use your drum or banana magazine monopod, you can sit there and clench that thing between your cheek and your shoulder there, and just aim and tap away like crazy if you need to.
Yeah.
I have all my firearms are that type, but I don't believe in Rambo type things. It's silly, but I believe there will be occasions where you'll need that firepower.
Well, there might be occasions, but I think overall, your best course is to learn to shoot.
Oh, I can shoot. I qualified every year, expert in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, well,
I can shoot. I know how to shoot it right.
Well,
I was with the M1 Garand.
You are speaking from the point of view of a professional. Maybe you don't realize it, but most of the people out there who are armed to the teeth don't shoot their guns.
Well, like the fellow you were talking about with an AK and 2-box ammo.
Yeah.
Right. I only have about 3,700 rounds.
Yeah.
For 2 AKs. So
Yeah.
that's a reasonable supply.
Well, you can understand why people in your position should know how to handle a fully automatic weapon, but you understand that this guy I was talking about is doomed if there's any trouble.
After 40 rounds, anyway.
Yes.
But yeah, I just thought I would throw that in for the other guys out there, black, white, and purple. And one final comment, I'll get off here real quick.
Okay.
A lot of black folks listen, they call in, and they think that we're all arming to go down and kill them all or something. And it's not the issue. The issue is preserving each one of us, black, white, or purple, our own home and our dignity and our and our sovereignty. And
well, I've never heard on this program or actually any others or even talking to right-wingers on the phone where they're a little more open, where any right-wing group, well, say Klan if you like, has ever had any ideas of going into black neighborhoods.
No, sir. I'm an identity Christian, and I don't have that attitude.
Yeah.
I feel they have a right to live and to survive and be sovereign just as I do.
Well, I mean, what I'm trying to point out is I don't think that there is any threat to the blacks. And if the blacks are sitting out there believing that they're being threatened, like so many whites are sitting out believing that somebody's going to do something to them, I think that when it hits everybody, everyone is going to be terrified, and not many people will move. The action is going to start in the urban areas when it's every man for himself and let the devil take the hindmost.
Yes, sir.
But as far as moving into, well, I should, without being disrespectful to blacks, I should say that the ghettos are the last place that white looters would go.
Certainly.
See?
My biggest fear is that this will be so ingrained, we'll believe that this is what's going to happen, that it'll be a natural result, and all the blacks and whites start attacking each other, while our real enemies sit back and laugh at us.
Well, yes, whoever our real enemies are. I live in Alpena, see, so I don't have that problem.
Well, I'm even more remote than you. I live in the mountains, so...
Well, good.
But I'm just saying, I don't want to see these fellows think that if they start believing this crap long and strong enough, they're going to have a big war between two people that never even had a problem. Yeah, and nobody's paying either side. Yes, exactly. And I better get off here. I took too much time. Okay, buddy. Thanks for calling. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, again, the phone number is 501-437-2963, and the mailing address for the packet is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. Hello, Kirk here. Yeah, Kirk. When I was in the Navy, we used to have weevils in our bread. We'd hold it up to the light, and you could see them in there. We used to appreciate the fresh meat. Yeah. You know, if you ever heard the solution to a problem and didn't solve the problem, and yet it would probably save your nation and save your people, what would you call a person that let something like that go by? Oh, I would call it my average listener. Well, you know, Roosevelt, Hitler, and Mussolini were all elected to important posts
and had great power because of a depression, a terrible depression in Germany.
So was Roosevelt. Well, you mentioned Roosevelt. I'm sorry, Stan. I was
Yeah.
anticipating. I should never do that with you.
That's okay. I heard about 25 years ago, I asked a man who knew. He was trying to help John F. Kennedy improve our economy, and I asked him, I said, what is money? And he said, just real quick, he said, money is debt deferred.
He said that.
Huh?
He said that. You ought to snatched him balls.
Well, you know, he was very well off. He was a genius, actually.
Yeah.
And I went on about 2 years thinking about it, and there was a Frenchman before the French Revolution who stated very clearly that all money represented debt. If there were no debt, there'd be no need for money. And if you stop and think about it, the money we use today as cash, a Federal Reserve note, that's debt. That's a debt paying a debt.
I don't understand.
Okay, a note is an obligation. An obligation is a debt.
I still don't understand. I mean, well, put me in the picture. I go to the store.
Okay.
I want some stuff. We take our cart there with all the cat food and the cat litter.
That's right.
And then we hand over some money. Now, where's the debt there?
Okay.
Where's the deferral of the debt?
Well, whenever you fill your cart up full of goods, you're in debt that amount until you settle the debt at the checkout counter.
Well, I'm not in debt as long as I'm in the store. It's only after I get out of the store, if I haven't paid it, then I'm in debt.
Well, you see, you're missing a point. You can't go out the store without settling your debt.
But it's not a debt while I'm still in the store, because while I'm still in the store, it belongs to the store owner.
The reason you don't buy something in the store, usually because it costs so much that you can't afford to get in debt that much. Now, that seems to me simple. To me, it may be complicated to you, and I had a friend I could not explain that to, but to me it's very clear. I look at cars all the time. I can't afford them because I can't afford the debt. On top of that, we pay for the debt with a note, which is a debt, and the note is bearing interest to the people who have captured our credit.
Okay, Stan, can you wrap it up and tell me what to do about it in
Yes.
3 words or less?
If you do not go to the U.S. Constitution and issue money from our Treasury, issue notes like Abraham Lincoln did, they're called United States notes. Only you should call them we owe us notes. We owe us notes. Not I owe you, but we owe us. Otherwise, we owe them. And as long as we owe them, we are slaves to them. But if we owe us, we're in good shape.
Well, okay, Stan, I'm just going to rearrange my change, and I appreciate your call, buddy. You call again.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Stan.
Sure. Talk so. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, the phone number is 501-437-2963. The mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And for $10, you get this big information packet, and we got the root rots in today. Big book, fantastic information in that. And then, of course, there's the fuel book, which you don't need to worry about too much because it's going to be reprinted in Volume 5 of The Survivor. And you will get a $5 refund from either subscription to the U.S. Militia or the Shoestring Entrepreneur. Oh, here's another call. Hello, Kurt here.
Hi, Kurt. This is Preston.
Hi, Preston. Preston.
Oh, yeah. Got some more input on the wheat for you, on the weevil.
Okay.
I read a study from, I think it was University of Nebraska. They found that if you just basically shook your wheat every day for a couple of 3 weeks, it killed like 98% of the weevils, because the weevils have to push off something to worm their way into your wheat. If you shake them up and disturb them, eventually they starve because they can't get into your wheat to eat it.
Oh, they do work from the top down,
and
if you bury them in it, then they can't move.
Yep. And
well, that's a good idea. I never thought of that.
They have to push off something to be able to scrape through the shell of the wheat.
Wait, well, now, what if they don't have? If they're on top of it, they wouldn't need to push off, unless they can get between it.
I'll tell you what.
Now I'm confused, Preston.
I'll find a copy of the article in the report that says that they have to, they have to have something to.
Well, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it because I've never seen them too far down in the wheat or whatever. But yeah, that's a good enough idea. But the thing is, if you see them in there,
drop
then
in the freezer.
Put it in the oven, and the few weevils you get in your tummy is not going to hurt you, because they're not nasty like cockroaches or flies or anything like that.
I just eat mine. In fact,
yeah.
I have friends who eat bran cereals, and they look for weevils and they ignore them, eat them as they're crawling around.
Well, I would think that's best, but they're not nasty. They're not full of germs. They're just little sweeties. They don't mean to harm.
Just grind them up and use them for extra leavening.
Just use them.
It's good to talk to you. Good luck with the show.
Well, thank you, Preston.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now. Okay, the phone number is 501-437-2963. Mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And you might consider getting you a Corona grain mill, last you the rest of your life. $40 plus $4 UPS. Make sure you give your delivery address, because it goes UPS, plus your phone for the UPS people in case they have trouble. Hello, Kurt here.
Yeah, hi, Kurt. Great show. Enjoy all your literature. I've got everything except the Entrepreneur, and I've just ordered that. So
good.
You'll get my order in a few days.
Well, you'll get about 7 back issues of The Survivor with it, free.
Oh, fantastic.
We're going to be running out of the back issues.
Actually, I've got a subscription to The Survivor, too, I believe. I've got I order every...
Wait, if you've got a subscription to The Survivor and it's current, then you didn't need to subscribe to Shoestring Entrepreneur, because that's partly a name change, and your subscriber subscription will just run in with the Entrepreneur. But we'll
check it out and extend my subscription anyway. Put out some great stuff. Anyway, a comment regarding storing wheat in these milk cartons.
Yeah.
The problem, as I understand, I've got a Mormon friend who's very much into food preservation, and he cautioned me against putting anything into milk cartons, which for the most part these days are biodegradable. So there may be some toxic byproducts given off as these things degrade, and then especially as they fall apart, your water or whatever else you put in them is just going to be all over your shelves.
Well, I didn't know anything about them being biodegradable, but I would advise anyone against storing water in any plastic container that isn't specifically for water. However, as far as grain is concerned, if the grain is dry, it's not going to absorb anything in the plastic.
Okay, but a lot of the stuff, if you look at it, you see now the environmentalists have gotten in, and a lot of these milk cartons are biodegradable, and they will actually degrade over a period of time and fall apart in the landfills.
Well, you see, in the landfills, they're subject to moisture, but if you put them in your back room, if you don't let them get rained on, keep your roof repaired, then they'll stay dry, and I don't think they would degrade in your lifetime if they're kept dry. The contents are dry.
I'm not sure. Anyway, he recommended absolutely not putting anything in biodegradable containers.
Well, then he doesn't have to. See, I'm going to give him a permission to just store them in anything he wants, but I'm advising anybody else that if you've got gallon milk cartons, they're perfectly okay to put dry stuff in. You keep them dry, and they're not going to degrade, because there'd be no way for them to degrade.
Yeah,
something
I
has
think
to
probably
break
a better
them down.
solution, though, what he recommended to me is to use glass bottles that beverages come in. If you happen to buy apple juice or something else like that in glass containers.
Well, I know, but a lot of people don't. I know we don't.
Right. Well, I don't either. But
yes.
That's what passing this on to a guy who's an expert in food preservation.
Yes. Okay. Well, his point is well taken.
Okay. Keep up the good work. Enjoy everything you do.
Well, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. The phone number is 501-437-2963. Mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And you send in your $10, and you get your fantastic big information packet, and your $5 refund on either subscription. Hello, Kurt here.
Hi, Kurt. Jim from Texas. How you doing?
Hi, Jim.
Good show. I'll point about the milk bottles. They don't degrade because of the moisture. They degrade because of the UV light that hits them. They're ultraviolet degradable.
Yeah, well, how long does it take them to degrade?
It depends on the product, and of course, if it's on top of the landfill or in underground.
Well, you wouldn't need to consider it one way or the other if they're stored in a back room, would you?
You store anything, you always store bottles with food or whatever in a dark area, so in a dark area they last for a long time.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a consideration if you do it properly. We're storing dried grains here in a dry room and usually in the dark.
Absolutely. They'd last 5 years at least.
Yeah.
Where do I get a grain mill?
Well, you can send me $44 and I will call the order into Utah, and these good Mormon people will send you an 11-pound cast iron grain mill that'll last you all your life, and it does very good work. And but make sure that it's not a post office box. It has to be your home address, because they deliver it by UPS, and you should give your phone number just in case they have any trouble finding your home. It makes them feel secure.
Right. You bet. I live out on 3 acres, so I'm getting ready.
Yeah, well, that Corona grain mill will see. It's made in Colombia for the peasantry, and they can't afford conspicuous consumption.
Right.
And I've had mine for 30 years, and it works perfectly. And these are, well, they're very good. I mean, every family should have one, regardless of what he thinks about anything, because you can go to your feed and seed store and buy 50 pounds of corn for $3.50. And you grind that, and that means your cornmeal is 6 cents a pound. If you go to the store and get it, it's degerminated for a long shelf life. It costs you 28 cents a pound. And if it's not degerminated, it costs you 40 cents a pound. And you can make cornmeal mush for that for about 4 cents a pound. It's very delicious. And, well, a grain grinder would ensure that your family would never go hungry. And if you got a wife that knows how to use herbs and spices, she can make anything taste good. And here we're eating sheep, and you grind your grain as you need it. And so even if your grain has been stored for 3 or 4 years, it will taste better than the flour you get in the store, because you never know how long that flour has been sitting around.
Well, that's right. And the longer the food, the processed food is stored, the less nutritional value it has.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyhow, I'm honored to talk to a well-written author, and I'll continue to listen to your show.
Did you send for my packet?
I'm going to do that plus the grain. I'll send you $54, I guess.
Okay, and now you probably by the time I get the order, issue 4 of the U.S. militia will be in. Well, and of course you got to decide whether you want root rot or the fuel book. I would suggest root rot, because I'm going to print the fuel book in Survivor 5.
Well, I appreciate your work. Continue on.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Phone number is 501-437-2963. The mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And not that it really matters, but my name is Kurt Saxon, not Kirk Jackson or anything. K-U-R-T-S-A-X-O-N. But it doesn't matter. As long as you got the address right, I'll get it. Hello, Kurt here.
Good evening, Kurt. This is Rick from Ohio.
Hi, Rick.
Yes, sir. I was calling to ask you, about 3 weeks ago, I bet, I heard someone mention on your show, or maybe it was you, that you'd be on weekends.
I'm trying to get on weekends. There's somebody else in that slot. And the guy at the radio station says that he's going to get me that. I don't know quite what the situation is, but it seems that they're sort of up for grabs. And when they get off that slot, then I'm first to get it. Okay, great, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there besides myself that would love to hear you 7 days a week if it's possible. Well, the big thing is that, see, I come on in California at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If I were on at 9 o'clock on weekends, then it would be 7 o'clock in the evening in California. So that way I'd get to the West Coast. But as it is, I don't get the West Coast at all in a sense, except maybe a few people. Okay. Because I understood that the second hour came up for grabs, and I guess someone else took it, you know, from like... Yes.
Okay, so that wasn't an option then.
Yes. Well, it seems that this time period is clearer than the next hour.
I noticed that.
And so it was pretty good as far as reception is concerned. But if I get on weekends and people in California and Washington State can hear me, then they will know that I'm also on in the daytime, see, so they can tell people who are at home.
Okay, but they didn't tell you as to when that's going to be available to you.
No, they don't know.
Okay. Well, I'll just have to keep listening and
yeah.
I hear you. Yes, sir. Well, that's the only question I had. I'll get off and let somebody else get on here.
Okay, buddy.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, the phone number is 501-437-2963. The mail, whoops, here we go. Hello, Kurt here.
Hello, this is Scott down in Georgia.
Hi, Scott.
Yeah, listen, I was wanting to know if you had some suggestions, say if you had like a SKS rifle that you wanted to just put out in the backyard and bury, and maybe some ammunition. Just some suggestions for a way to...
I would suggest you do that.
Huh?
I would suggest you do that and get you a 30-06 and learn to shoot it.
Oh, I know how to shoot a 30-06.
Well, good.
And I have one. But as far as treating it with oil or some type of waterproof container to put it in.
Well, they used to pack guns in Cosmoline. They may be still. It's a well, you might get you a pound of Vaseline and melt it and pour it in the works and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then when it cools and solidifies, I think that that would be totally weatherproof. Of course, what I would suggest you do, leave it outside for a few hours in the hot sun to take away any moisture in it, because if you put Vaseline or something and it goes over water beads that's in your rifle, then even with all of that, it's going to cause rust spots.
Yeah.
But if you put it out in the hot sun for a few hours, more or less boil all the moisture out, then take a pound of Vaseline, melt it, pour it in the barrel and in the works, and coat all around, and then put it in a plastic sheath, and then bury it. Maybe then put boards over it too.
Right.
Then I think it would last forever.
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe trying to get a big piece of PVC pipe.
Well, yes, Carrie just handed a suggestion.
Caps on it.
A 6-inch PVC pipe with caps.
Yeah.
Yes, you can get that at, I don't know about hardware, well, a good hardware store. If you get about 3 feet of PVC pipe.
Right.
Yeah, that should do it.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good idea about melting the Vaseline. I've been about using Vaseline, but melting it down, yeah, it really flow in on all the surfaces there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's also, but make sure that you put it out in the hot sun for several hours.
Well, look here, I haven't been listening to your program too long, but if you send in $10, what all do you get for that?
Well, you get a sample issue of U.S. Militia, the only magazine for community defense, improvised weaponry, all kinds of great stuff. I've got 4 issues out so far.
Yeah.
And you'd get 8 more for $35.
Yeah.
And then you'd get a copy of Shoestring Entrepreneur, how to sell anything you can make or grow, how to start your own business. What do you do?
I'm a carpenter.
Well, you're all set. You subscribe to that. And if do you contract or do you work for someone else?
I contract out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know. You could probably make all kinds of other stuff out of wood with scrap lumber that you could pick up for nothing. But then, of course, there's root rot, which shows that, well, it actually proves that the blacks who made it over here as slaves were very fortunate. And every black person in the country should be very happy that his ancestors were lucky enough to be sold into slavery to America, because, as the stories show, what would have happened to them in Africa is not even, there might be children listening, see? So we won't go into that, but the book is very graphic, and all of the stories are from the 19th century, and I'm going to read the introduction to it tomorrow. That should give a lot of people a lot of things to think about, especially any blacks who feel that they've been persecuted and that if their ancestors had been left alone, that they would have grown up in some kind of paradise. They would have been eaten.
Eaten?
Yes.
By what?
By their owners.
Oh, by their owners in Africa?
Yeah.
Who owned them in Africa?
The chiefs that sold them to the slave traders who took them to the coasts and sold them to the white people.
Oh.
I think you'd love Root Rot. It's a big book.
Okay.
So just ask for Root Rot, and don't worry about the Fuel Book, because I'm going to be reprinting it in Volume 5 of The Survivor, which you'll get in time.
Okay.
Okay, buddy.
Okay, well, thanks.
Okay, bye for now. Okay, the phone number again is 501-437. What is it? What happened? Oh, here it is. 2963. I had the card turned over. Hello, Kurt here.
Hi, Kurt. Just a little advice on the weevils.
Yeah.
Try dry ice. Put your wheat in a barrel, in a drum or a bucket, 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah.
Put about 3 square inches of dry ice in there.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the lid cracked. About 30 minutes, 40, 50 minutes.
Well, not necessary. I don't think it has too much for, I don't think it depends so much on a time limit, but when you see the fumes coming out the top, then everything is permeated. And so I think that would be good enough. Of course, I tried to get some dry ice in Harrison, and I couldn't find it in Harrison. They said I could get some in Little Rock. Of course, this is Arkansas. You got to put up with that. But I hear it costs about $2.75 a pound. That's quite expensive.
But I understand that that carbon
carbon dioxide.
That kills the weevils.
Well, it replaces the air. It's like, for instance, if you have someone living with you that you don't like, and you go into their bedroom at night, and you suspend some over there, about 1.5 feet over their face, then the carbon dioxide will go down over their face and take away all the air. See? It does the same thing with the weevils. It displaces the air so that the weevils die and they don't even know what hit them.
Amazing.
Yes.
I just thought I'd throw that in there, Kurt.
Well, I appreciate it.
And I'm going to send my $10 in to get your package.
Okay. Now, be sure to specify Root Rot or the Fuel Book, but I would suggest Root Rot because I'm going to reprint the Fuel Book in Volume 5.
Okay, Kurt.
Okay, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, the phone number is 501-437-2963. The mailing address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas, 72611. And you really ought to get that grain mill, $40 and $4 for UPS. Make sure you give your delivery address. You'll never be sorry. Hello, Kurt here.
Yeah, I've got something for you that you might be interested in. It's
okay.
Pump and seal, they call it. It's a little pump and kit that you pump the air out of a container with it.
Yeah.
It works something like a bicycle pump, except in reverse. Now,
did you buy it?
Yeah, I've got one and I've tried it out and it works real good.
Good. Where do you buy it? Did you get it from TV? I think I saw, well, I did see a TV demonstration of it.
Yeah, that's where I saw it. But there's another place that sells it cheaper. It's called Harriet Carter.
Oh, okay. Do you have an address?
Yeah. North Wales, Pennsylvania.
Harriet Carter, North Wales, Pennsylvania. That's all?
19455.
19455. And how much postage and handling?
$29.98 and $5.98, something like that. But there's a telephone number you can call.
Okay, let's just give them the phone number. Forget the address because we're not sure of the prices.
Right.
What's the phone number?
215-361-5151.
Okay, give that again, quick.
215-361-5151.
Well, thank you very much. Is that it?
Yeah, it's a 24-hour number, 7 days, it says on the catalog.
Okay, I'm sure a lot of people want one.
Okay.
Okay, buddy.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Okay, the phone number is 501-437-2963. Who's going to be my lucky last caller? The address is P.O. Box 95, Alpena, Arkansas 72611. And send in your $10. You get a $5 refund on either subscription. You get a sample copy of Shoestring Entrepreneur, U.S. Militia, and Root Rot, or the Fuel Book. I'm waiting for a call. We're just about to close down. What happened to that flasher? Well, let's see. Should I just be sitting here with a blank space? Am I dying? Okay, here, I'll give you the Shotgun News address. 36 issues for $20. It's the Supermarket of Weaponry. Shotgun News, P.O. Box 669. Whoops, here's a call. Give that tomorrow. Hello, Kurt here.
Yeah, hi, Kurt. How you doing?
Doing fine. Glad you called.
Oh, I'm glad I am too. Kurt, I seen your books at the last gun show.
Yeah.
And the guy was holding your books ransom, charging a premium for them.
Yeah. How much was he charging?
$27.95.
Ridiculous.
And $22.95.
Yeah, well, they probably were the pirated editions anyway on newsprint.
Well, he had them in shrink wrap.
Okay, those were he's the pirate.
Okay. Well, anyway,
he got them from the pirate. But I sell them for $18 unless you're a subscriber, in which case they're $16.20.
And to be a subscriber, it's $10 for the package. And
well, you send $10 for the packet, and then with that, then you'll get $5 off either subscription to U.S. Militia or Shoestring Entrepreneur, and you'd treasure no matter what you get. And you buy my books from these pirates, and they're a very poor quality edition anyway, and vastly overpriced.
Oh yeah, you can say that again. One question before I leave. I'm in Philadelphia, a few friends of mine, and we just started tuning you in a little bit after Christmas, and prior to that, we went out and we purchased a lot of these SKS, and a lot of ammo, and we're thinking we didn't do the real wisest thing with our money.
Well, take it to a gun show and sell it to some sucker, and then buy you a 30-06.
Why do you say 30-06?
Because the ammo is always available, and they'll knock down anything you aim at. They're just the best all-around gun.
And would you have one rifle in mind? Better than
well, the 30-06 M1 Garand, I should say, is the best. But any good hunting rifle, bolt action or what, 30-06 would be better. But look, we've got to go now, and I sure thank you for your call. You call again.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, bye-bye. Now it's sign-off time. I'll talk to you tomorrow. So this is Kurt Saxon saying goodbye and be good.